Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tina and I do videos on metal music and video games. And today I'm very excited to be bringing you the very first episode of a new segment called Band of the Month, where I take a band from classic metal or sometimes modern metal and listen to their entire discography and give you my thoughts on it. And I announce what the next band is going to be, so that if you want to listen along with me, you can listen to that band's music, and then when I post the video, you can add your comments on what you thought of their discography. Or if you're already familiar with them, you can just discuss them. Maybe they're your favorite bands. Today we're going to be talking about Iron Maiden. I chose them as my first band of the month. I thought they were very deserving of it. My familiarity with Iron Maiden is pretty much, I've listened to The Number of the Beast. That's the only full album that I've listened to, and then I've heard other singles just from the radio, but I've never done a deep dive into their catalog, so I was very excited to be doing this band for my first featured band. I'm going to be talking a little bit about their career, any lineup changes they had, and then I'm going to talk about each album and what I thought of it. They have a huge discography. They have 16 studio albums, so I'm going to split this video into two parts. So far I've listened to half of their discography, the first 8 albums, and I'm going to be talking about those in today's video. A little bit of background on the band. Iron Maiden were formed in 1975 by bassist Steve Harris. Their original lineup when they recorded their first self-titled debut studio album was Paul Di'Anno on vocals, Steve Harris on bass, Dave Murray and Dennis Stratton on guitar, and Clive Burr on drums. So I listened to their debut album, which was released in 1980, and my initial thoughts on it were the production or the mix on the album wasn't fantastic, but then again, it's their debut album. This took place in 1980. I understand they're not going to have perfect production right out the gate, so I'll just get that over with. The first track on the album is called Prowler, and something that I noticed as I went along their discography was Iron Maiden really know how to choose an opening track. Their opening tracks are, for the most part, really energetic and really get your blood pumping and get you ready for the rest of the album. And Prowler is no exception. It's a great opening track. I thought this was my first encounter with Paul Di'Anno. I had never heard any songs that he had featured on, and I thought his vocals were pretty good. You know, there's no comparison to Bruce Dickinson, as everybody knows, but I thought he did a pretty good job. I really didn't mind his vocals. There's a really catchy guitar solo in here, and the main riff is also very catchy and kind of familiar. I almost feel like I've heard something similar in other music, like maybe somebody took inspiration from this song and I heard it somewhere else, but the main riff is very good on this song. The next song is called Sanctuary. It has a very classic rock beat. It has some cheesy sound effects, which I typically don't like in music, like police sirens and people laughing. But other than that, it's a very good song. Track number 3 is called Remember Tomorrow. It's a ballad, kind of like a slower song, which I enjoy. I like, I'm a very thrash kind of person. I like my music fast and aggressive, but I also enjoy a good ballad thrown in there to balance the album, kind of, let things come back down to a simmer so that they can ramp back up. And Remember Tomorrow is a very good ballad. I really enjoyed it. It kind of switches tempo and gets a little bit faster, and then it comes back to the ballad beat, which I really enjoyed. The 4th song is called Running Free. The production on this song, for some reason, was especially noticeable as not very good. It's a very fun, youthful, rebellious song about running free. A very anthemic chorus, very repetitive. Obviously meant to be their stage song that they perform live a lot. The next song is called Phantom of the Opera. There's a little guitar interlude in the beginning that I really enjoyed, and then they bring in all the other instruments. It was a really cool moment, and there were tempo changes which I thought were really neat. There was also an excellent outro on this song. It was a very well structured song. I really enjoyed it. This was one of my favorites off of this album, I think. Very good song. Then comes an instrumental track called Transylvania. I'm a fan of instrumental tracks. They're usually pretty good, and Iron Maiden have very good instrumentalists, and so this is a highlight of this album, I would say. They do an excellent job and of showcasing their talents. The next song is called Strange World. Very interesting kind of psychedelic elements to this song. It kind of reminded me of Pink Floyd almost. Excellent guitar playing, excellent bass playing. Gives you something a little bit different from the rest of the album. The next track on the album is track number 8, and it's called Charlotte the Harlot. Kind of a weird song title, and the lyrics are kind of cringy on this track. I'll try to forgive that and just pay attention to the music. I just get a little bit picky when it comes to lyrics sometimes, especially when they stick out and kind of take your mind off of the music itself a little bit. But it's actually a pretty good song. If you ignore the lyrics, the instruments are very good on this album. On this song. And it's very catchy. I found myself like singing along to it, even though I was like, oh, these lyrics. The last track on the album is the self-titled track, Iron Maiden. I love self-titled tracks on self-titled albums, because then when you're like telling somebody what you're listening to, you're like, oh, I'm listening to Iron Maiden off of Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden. Like, I just love that when bands do that. This one is super fun, just a very energetic, fun track. Great melody, memorable chorus, very good pick for an album closer. I really like noticing song order on albums and thinking about why the band chose their opening track or their closing track on the album, and how it all forms like a cohesive piece. Overall, not a bad debut. I wasn't blown away by anything. I don't think it was like one of those albums where right off the gate you're like, oh wow, this band is gonna blow up and be huge, and this came off of the back of the new wave of British heavy metal. Iron Maiden were a part of that movement, and like I said, it's a pretty good album, but I don't think it's like their best album by far. The best songs off of this album I thought were Remember Tomorrow, Phantom of the Opera, and their closing track, Iron Maiden. I rated this album a 3.5 out of 5 because, like I said, the production is not very good on this album. Luckily, they do go on to fix that and have excellent production. The lyrics on some songs like Charlotte the Harlot kind of took me out of it a little bit. But there's some bangers on here, and this is a very classic album, and I can see how this could be a lot of people's not favorite, but an album that they really enjoy going back to, that feels very nostalgic for people. I liked it. So their next album was Killers, released in 1981. And they had a slight lineup change here. Their guitarist, Dennis Stratton, was replaced by Adrian Smith. Very good lineup change here. They did a great thing with that. As you will come to see throughout the rest of this band's discography. So Killer starts off with an opening track called the Ides of March. Very short instrumental song. It just kind of is there to lead into the rest of the album. And then it goes into the second track, Wrathchild. I'm still enjoying Paul Di'Anno's vocals on this album. It's not as interesting as Bruce's, but it's got a certain quality to it that I find very interesting. Very classic feeling song. It feels like this is going to be a standout track that people point to as one of the better songs on this album. The next track is called Murders in the Rue Morgue. I don't know what that means. Maybe I should have Googled that. I don't know what a Rue Morgue is. I know what a morgue is, but anyways, it faked me out thinking that it was going to be slow at the start, and then it speeds up. It gets a little bit repetitive with the songwriting, but I really enjoy the guitars on this. They really stood out to me as the instrument to listen to on this track. Kudos to Adrian Smith and Dave Murray. I'm not sure. I never really could figure out who was playing what parts when it comes to the two guitarists, but whoever it was, bang up job. The next track is called Another Life. This was a really cool song. The instrumental is excellent here, and when I say instrumental, I'm going to say that a couple times during this review. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I'm not really a music person. I never studied music in school or anything. When I say instrumental, what I mean is just the music playing without the vocals, so the guitars, bass, drums. So when I say the instrumental here is excellent, I just mean all of the instrument playing people are doing a great job. They keep the whole song interesting, and honestly it feels too short. I didn't want this song to end. This was definitely a highlight of this album for me. The next track is called Genghis Khan. It has very marching drums, a very militaristic feel, great guitars and great dynamic. I'm not sure how I feel about having two instrumental tracks so close to each other. I generally prefer, if there has to be an instrumental track on an album, for there to be only one. If there's going to be a second, then at least they're spaced far apart. Maybe one of them is the opening and then the other one is close to the end. But I don't mind them here. They're both pretty short tracks, so they don't feel like they're breaking up the album too much or like you're losing the momentum of the album. The next track is called Innocent Exile. There's a very interesting story here from what I can tell from the lyrics. I haven't actually read them, but I really enjoyed the storytelling that was taking place in this song. It feels like it's about an exile running from the law. It's a very evocative song with the imagery and the lyrics, and the music itself is doing the storytelling, going along with the lyrics. It's a very interesting track. I really enjoyed it. Next track is the title track, Killers. I'm enjoying it. I like all the songs on this album, and I feel that they have better lyric writing and songwriting than the previous album. You could really tell that they improved. The next track is called Prodigal Son. Very, very different, interesting track. They kind of switched it up here, and I didn't think there was going to be a ton of variation on this album until this song. It's very classic feeling, meaning that years later people are going to look back on this song and think, oh yeah, Prodigal Son is definitely a standout track on the Killers album. Very classic Maiden. The next song is called Purgatory, and there's a lot of galloping rhythms, another anthemic chorus, and then the last track is called Drifter, and the album kind of leads up to this track, and there's a lot of repeated lyrics which helps with the chorus being very catchy. There's a lot of very groovy slowdowns, but mostly fast-paced, just like the rest of the album. One thing that I have to mention, I'm not a huge fan of how 80s rock bands tend to use the word child interchangeably with love interest. Like, why do you have to go around calling all these girls child while you're singing about how you want to bang them or whatever? It's just really, really awkward. I know this is like an 80s thing, and if this had happened in 2020, people would have been all over it, but yeah, it just kind of takes me out of the track a little bit. But other than that, it's a pretty good song. So this album, my favorite songs were Another Life, Killers, and Prodigal Son. My rating for this album is 4.5 out of 5. I thought that they improved the production a little bit. The vocals from Paul are also a little improved. I enjoyed them even more on this album. There were some truly memorable tracks. There's better songwriting, and overall it is a pretty excellent album. Pretty close to perfect, I would say. In 1982, they released their third album, The Number of the Beast, and there is a huge lineup change here. They replaced their vocalist Paul Di'Anno with Bruce Dickinson. And this is one of the best career moves, I think, that they have made, apart from getting Adrian Smith as a guitarist. You can tell the difference in quality from this album, from the previous albums to this album. The album opens up with the number one track, Invaders. Bruce's voice, just right off the bat, you're blown away by the difference between Paul's and Bruce's voices. This track is super hype. It's excellent as an opening track. It just gets you pumped for the rest of the album. It's fast and energetic and gets you primed up for more. The next track is called Children of the Damned. I have always loved this song. Like I mentioned, this is the one album that I have heard in its entirety before, and when I first listened to it, Children of the Damned was my favorite track off of this album. It's such a contrast from Invaders. It's just a very moody song, really takes you on a journey. I'm still loving the pace, the instrumentals, the lyrics. Bruce is knocking it out of the park with his vocals. Upon my second listen, I still really love this song, and it may still be my favorite off of this album. I'm just really, really into this song. Track number 3 is called The Prisoner, and I'm really noticing with this track in particular how improved their sound production is. It just really shines in this track. Then again, I'm listening to the remastered versions. Maybe I should have listened to the original. I listened to the remastered versions of pretty much all of these albums just because I'm a little bit of a production snob, and I didn't want to let that affect how I feel about these albums. I want to review them more based on the music itself, because the production is really not their fault. That's the fault of whoever's in the studio mixing these albums for them. You know, it's really no gauge of how talented these musicians are, how good their production is. But there's an awesome solo towards the end of this track, and the drums also sound really excellent on this track, and I found the chorus to be very catchy also. This is a pretty good song overall. And then you get to track number 4, 22 Acacia Avenue. Yet another song about prostitutes. I don't know what is with Iron Maiden in this era and the prostitute thing. Anyways, I really enjoyed the galloping rhythms that start up after the first minute and a half or so. Like I said, I understand that this took place in the 80s, but the lyrics literally advocate violence against sex workers. They talk about do whatever you want with her, beat her up, whatever. It's like, what? The lyrics are really, really cringy on this song, and I know this is a very well loved song, and I understand it's an excellent song musically, but the lyrics just are terrible in retrospect when you look back on it from listening to it in 2020. It's incredibly problematic. But this was a different time, and it's no real measure of how good they are as a band. It's just some bad choices with lyric writing. But the songwriting is excellent, and I do get that this is a very good song musically. I did get into it despite my revulsion when it came to the lyrics on this track. The next song is called The Number of the Beast. I really like this song, and I always have. It is such a jam. I always want to crank it up. This chorus is so recognizable to me and just feels so comfortable. I know it's like singing about the devil, but you know what I mean? Like, just the familiarity is just so nice. Honestly, like, I know I was just talking about lyrics and how it can affect my perception of them, but I don't consider lyrics about the devil or Satan or whatever to be comparable to lyrics about predatory behavior or violence against women. They're totally two different realms, you know, like that's why I'm not really reacting to the lyrics on this song, because Iron Maiden, they're not actually Satanists, you know, they're not going out there sacrificing people or whatever. It's all just a gimmick, I understand, so that's why I'm not reacting to the lyrics in this track the way that I did on the previous one. But anyways, very, very good song. Like I said, I love this track, and it sounds incredible live from the live videos that I've watched where they play this song. The next track is track number 6, Run to the Hills. Another very recognizable song you've probably heard on the radio before. I know I have. And it's a very good song, very blood pumping, gets you, you know, energized and wanting to headbang. It, again, with the lyrics, it paints Native Americans in kind of a disparaging way, but for the most part you can ignore that and just get into the music. It's a very iconic track. I'm sure a lot of people love this song. I do as well. This song will always be a classic. The next track is called Gangland. This song is pretty good, not as good. It follows such incredible songs back to back that it kind of falls a little under the radar as a result. But it has a great beat and a great chorus. It just has a lot of competition on this album in terms of superior songs. But it still kept me engaged with the album. And then we come to the closing track, track number 8, Hallowed Be Thy Name. Another excellent song that hopefully everybody's heard of. If you haven't, if you're gonna listen to any Iron Maiden song, you should listen to Hallowed Be Thy Name. This is such a classic, essential Iron Maiden song, in my opinion, to listen to. This is probably one of the best album closers in all of metal. Like, it just ends the album in such an epic and perfect way. This song gives me chills every time I hear it. It's that good. It's absolutely perfect from beginning to end. Excellent track, enough said. Perfect way to end the album. As you could probably tell from the way I talk about it, I really like this album. My best and favorite tracks are Hallowed Be Thy Name, Children of the Damned, Run to the Hills, and Number of the Beast. I gave this album a 4.5 out of 5. This album would easily be a 5 out of 5 perfect album if it wasn't for my feelings about the lyrics of 22 Acacia Avenue. I just wish it was about anything else but with the same music, because it's just, oh man, it just kind of takes me out of it a little bit. But this album is so close to perfect, and one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums for sure. The next album comes out in 1983 called Peace of Mind. As for lineup changes, Clive Burr is replaced by Nico McBrain on the drums for this album, another really great lineup choice. So now we have a much more classic lineup for Maiden with the members that they currently have, and they stick with this lineup for several more albums after this. The opening track is Where Eagles Dare, and they have super fun drum parts on this song. It's a song where you really want to pay attention to the drums. Nico just comes out screaming. The drums mimic war sounds like marching and machine guns. It's really interesting addition to this track. The vocal part is pretty sparse on this track and really just allows the instruments to shine and come forward and take this track where it needs to go. Track number 2 is called Revelations. This song is so damn epic. It's intense vocally and lyrically, very memorable instrumental parts. There is an awesome guitar solo towards the end of the song that just carries through the rest of the song and is just awe-inspiring. The third track is Flight of Icarus, and I actually recognized this track. I think I've heard it before somewhere. Very iconic Maiden track. There's some vocal effects on Bruce's vocals that's very interesting here. A very tasty guitar solo is also featured on this track. The chorus is so catchy and stays stuck in your head and just makes this a very, very memorable Iron Maiden song. Track number 4 is called Die With Your Boots On. There's a very, I'm getting a military vibe from this album almost. I really enjoy the main riff in the chorus, and the bass really shines on this track as well. Kudos to Steve Harris. He's always knocking it out of the park. It's funny because the song seems so upbeat despite the very serious subject matter. At the end of the song, it really kicks into high gear and gets very energetic and kicks ass. Track number 5 is The Trooper, and prior to doing this Band of the Month thing, The Trooper had always been my absolute #1 favorite Iron Maiden song. We'll see if it still is by the end of all of these albums, but as for right now, it definitely is still one of my absolute favorite Maiden songs. God, I just love this song. It's so awesome. The songwriting is superb. The guitars are like my favorite thing on this track. The drumming is perfect. The bass kicks ass. The vocals are awesome. It's just overall just a perfect song. I mean, what else can I say about The Trooper that everybody doesn't already know? Track number 6 is called Still Life, and it opens up with this incredible solo. This one is less galloping Maiden and a little more ballady Maiden. It's very moody, very melancholic. I really like it though. They have such good guitar solos on this song. There's one to open the song and then one to close the song. It's like bookended by these incredible guitar solos, and you just want to relish in the music. The next track is called Quest for Fire. I think it's about cavemen or something. Another kind of very interesting song lyrically. There's a really nice little rhythm going here, a nice story being painted by the instruments. The chorus is very anthemic and catchy. I love how clearly I can hear Steve Harris's bass in so many of these songs due to the improving production, because the bass on this song absolutely rips. He is just so good on this song. Oh my gosh. The next track is called Sun and Steel, another one that seems vaguely familiar. Like, I think I may have heard it before, or maybe other tracks from other bands have taken inspiration from this one. It gives me a sense of Deja Vu. A very, very catchy chorus, the kind that you would get stuck in your head. Maybe I have heard it on the radio before. It's a very catchy song. It seems like it would do really excellent on rock radio. The last track on this album, the closing track, is called To Tame a Land, and it is an epic, long journey of a song that I was not prepared for. The guitars are sounding amazing. There's great tempo changes here. I absolutely love this part about 3 minutes in with just an awesome riff behind the vocals, building and building. Incredible tempo changes, riff fest from beginning to end. almost a classical guitar feeling to some of the solos. There's like dueling guitar vibes with the solos here. It truly was an epic, and by the end of the song I started thinking that maybe I like this song even more than the Trooper on this album. I was really blown away by this closing track. It is so freaking good. Maybe I have a new favorite. I don't know. We'll see. But I was blown away and engaged the entire time, and by the time it ended I was like, what happened? Where'd it go? I want to keep listening to this, and I instantly wanted to click replay. So the best songs off of this album were To Tame a Land, The Trooper, Revelations, and Flight of Icarus. My rating for this album is 5 out of 5. This is a perfect album, definitely my favorite so far. Every single song fit in here, there was nothing to dislike. There were no weak tracks, there were no stupid lyrics throwing me out of the songs. No filler, every single note mattered and impressed me, and the instruments were so incredible on this album. You can really tell that they have a lot of chops by now. And there's so many great songs I've never even heard before. I've never heard To Tame a Land before. Like, how can that be? I will be so pleased if more albums can top this one, because that was an incredible album. Their next album is Power Slave, which comes out in 1984. The opening track is Aces High, and it is some classic Iron Maiden riffage right out the gate. Super high energetic, super fun. They really know how to choose their song order. It's a running theme throughout this discography that they choose the best openers. A very blood-pumping song just to get you started off right. Track number 2 on this album is 2 Minutes to Midnight, a classic Maiden song that everybody has heard if you listen to rock radio. Obviously I've heard it before. This song is super catchy and I can't not sing along when I listen to it. It's just so classic. I don't have a whole lot to say about it that other people probably haven't said about it over and over again. It's just a really great classic song that is essential Iron Maiden listening, in my opinion. Track number 3 is called Lost for Words, spelled very strangely. I don't understand why they do some of these song titles. It's an instrumental track. The bass is awesome. Thank you, Steve Harris. It's a little bit repetitive until the solo comes in. They use a motif of this one guitar part that reminded me of a different song, and I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. There's this guitar motif that keeps coming back that just feels so familiar. Pretty decent instrumental song. Track number 4 is called Flash of the Blade. There's a great repeating guitar riff here. Some very interesting things going on with the instruments. I can't even begin to describe it in technical terms. I just don't have that know-how. But in comparison, you really don't even pay attention to Bruce's vocals on this track that much. I felt a little bit let down by his part in this, to the point that the instruments almost like drowned him out on this track. Track number 5 is The Dualists, and this is a very cool song. The vocals and instruments are like playing off of each other back and forth in a way that complements each other instead of overshadowing each other like on the last track. The solos are killer. Kudos to the guitarists. The end of the song, the latter half, truly shines as a bright spot on this album. Very unexpected, pleasant surprise. The next song on this album is called Back in the Village. There's this absolutely killer guitar riff, and the bass on this song is just going off. Steve Harris has lost his damn mind on this track. There's a dual guitar about 2 minutes in, and that entire section is just golden. So I keep discovering as I go through this that I'm totally in love with Iron Maiden's instrumentalists. I never really paid attention to them before. Obviously, I've heard of Bruce Dickinson, being familiar with Iron Maiden, And I've heard the names Steve Harris, Adrian Smith, all of those before, but I never really knew who they were or like could tell you any distinctive parts that they play. But going through all of these albums, I'm just continually impressed by the instrumentalists. Like, they are some really, really good players. The next track is the title track, Power Slave. Very Egyptian themes here in the music. They go along with the theme of the album. There's this beautiful solo right in the middle of the song, super sweet. I love the changing tempos and the thematic elements and the dynamics and everything. There's a very anthemic chorus. The last track is Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and I had so much to say about this song that I had to like edit myself. The song is very long and there's a lot going on here. There's an element of storytelling via the music playing off of the lyrics, and they're like working together. There's like different acts to the song almost, and everything just comes together to form this masterpiece. This song is very long, but it doesn't feel that long because it draws you into this story with this excellent storytelling through the music. Every part is important. Every instrument fits into the overall story arc. I've seen a lot of loves for this song, and now I know why. It's a very classic song. Super epic. This would be incredible to see live in concert. Iron Maiden actually came to an area near me last year and I didn't go. I wasn't super familiar with Iron Maiden at the time, and the tickets were a little bit pricey and I decided to pass on it. And now I'm kicking myself. I should have freaking gone. Finances be damned. The best tracks off of this album were 2 Minutes to Midnight, The Dualist, Back in the Village, and Rime of the Ancient Mariner. My rating for this album is a 4.5 out of 5. Another incredible album. They blew me away on the last few tracks. I only docked half of a point for Lost for Words and Flash of the Blade because they were two decent songs on an album full of absolute bangers, and it was hard not to notice that very slight dip in quality, and hard not to compare those songs the way that they stood out from the rest of the album. Their next album, Somewhere in Time, comes out in 1986. The first opening track is Caught Somewhere in Time. So something happens on this album that is different from the previous albums. I start to hear synthesizers in these tracks. So I'll just clarify my position on synthesizers. I know it's kind of an either you love it or you hate it thing in rock music. And I fall a little bit more on the camp of they're not my favorite thing. I generally prefer to not have synthesizers in songs. But as long as they're not too obtrusive, I can deal with them as long as the song is otherwise great. The opening is a classic opening track on Maiden albums, very galloping rhythms. I'm digging the overall vibe. Maybe not super crazy about the chorus melody, but it starts growing on me as I get into the song. It's a very long song. This may be an ongoing trend that we start to see longer songs. It seems that at this point Iron Maiden start going into more of a progressive direction. The songs get a little longer, a little more dynamic, and a lot going on in them. Track number 2 is Wasted Years, another classic Maiden song that you've probably heard on the radio. It's the one that I've already heard before from this album. Pretty good song that I possibly enjoy even more than before now that I've listened to so much Maiden. Before, when I would hear it on the radio, it was like, yeah, not a bad song. But now that I'm so used to Maiden and I've listened to so much of their music, I actually enjoy it a lot more than I used to. The chorus really does get to you, and I never really noticed before how much the guitar solo slays. Like, it is an excellent guitar solo on this song. I never really thought about it before. But now that I'm more familiar with Adrian and Dave, I guess I'm like more into it. The third track is called Sea of Madness. And the synth sound is a little bit more prominent here, a little more noticeable. I don't mind it. I really dig the bass part. Like, there is an excellent bass part on this track. The bass tone is just awesome. The next track is called Heaven Can Wait, and it is a super blood-pumping, energetic track. I love it. It's quite a turn from their usual dark, broody, moody songs. Not that there's been a ton of that in this album. I really enjoyed this track. Something upbeat, something a little different. It really gets you going. The next track on this album is The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Another track that starts off a little bit slower and then the tempo changes and it becomes the super energetic track. There's this one guitar riff behind the chorus that I really, really love. And then it breaks into this great section with the drums. And that pace, it almost feels like something that you would be listening to while you're actually doing some running. The drums are so excellent throughout this track. They really stand out on it. This song is awesome. 2 bangers in a row. The next track is called Stranger in a Strange Land, and when I was listening to it, it actually had an official video, but I didn't recognize it, and I don't think I've heard this song before. Was it a single? I'm not familiar with it. It has a pretty cool chorus. Guitar solo with the bass supporting it was pretty kick-ass. The guitarist really shines on this album. I'm not sure whether it's Adrian or Dave. Like I said, I have a hard time telling between them, but whoever it is, they are kicking ass on this song and just giving you some tasty riffs after tasty riffs. The next track is Deja Vu, another fucking banger right out the gate. Jesus. The drummer is just going crazy. Nico is just doing these crazy things with his drum kit. This is one of the shorter songs, but it should have been one of the longer songs because I did not want this just song to end. It was so awesome. I don't have much else to say about it except that I really loved it and I wish there was more of it. The ending track on this album is called Alexander the Great 356 to 323 BC. I don't know why they included the years in the title of the track. That's a little strange. It kind of reminds me of the Power Slave album, just the thematic elements and the songwriting. It's not a synthy, it's very epic, very historic, proggy. It takes you on a journey, and holy shit, the guitar solo on this track is awesome. Excellent instrumentals, and Bruce once again knocking it out of the park. I don't praise Bruce a lot on this. I talk about the instruments more because I feel like it's just kind of understood that whatever Bruce is doing, he's doing awesome. Like, he generally doesn't have a lot of bad parts on albums. The best tracks off of this album, I think, are Heaven Can Wait, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, and Deja Vu. My rating of this album is 4.5 out of 5. Again, they nailed it, and it was so close to being perfect. I just was not a huge fan of the synths. I know that's probably going to be a thing, we're getting along in the years. Synths are featuring in music more and more, and it's not much I can do about it. But I feel like that's the direction the band is heading, and I'm prepared for it. I know I'm going to hear more of it, and I'll try not to let that influence my decisions on whether I like the albums or the songs. Overall, I did love this album, and I thought there were no obviously weak tracks, just some that were a little bit less awesome. Caught Somewhere in Time and Sea of Madness didn't quite live up to the rest of the album, I thought, hence my rating of 4.5 out of 5. The next album I listened to was Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, coming out in 1988. It's the 7th studio album. I see what you did there, Iron Maiden. The first track is called Moonchild, and this is such an iconic, epic track. Just wow. What a good album opener. Lots of thematic elements of the number 7 in the lyrics. I can tell that's going to be a thing on this album. Hell of an intro. I'm not overwhelmed by the synths, so that's a good thing. It's not overshadowing anything else on this track. Overall, just a really, really good song. The second track, Infinite Dreams, is very moody, very interesting vibes. Definitely more synth heavy, but at the same time not overpowering. Not so much that it turns me off or anything. They don't have a lot of these slow, somber tracks, so it's really nice when they slow down and give you a little bit more of a moody, sort of ballad type song. And just then, right when I start thinking that it's going to be a ballad, it picks up into a frenzy. The drums start going crazy. Thanks a lot, Nico. And there's just a great change of pace to end this song off with a bang. Track number 3, Can I Play With Madness? Okay, this was the first Iron Maiden track out of this entire journey that I feel like I'm not crazy about. It's not bad, it's just a little different. I don't know, I almost feel like they're trying to be a little too radio friendly or something on this track. I don't know what it is. I had trouble getting into it, and I'm a little disappointed. You know, I feel like every song that I've listened to so far has been good in some way or the other. And I'm not saying this is a bad song. Obviously, it's pretty decent. I just feel like they lose a little bit of what makes them them on this song, if that makes any sense. I mean, compare it to Moonchild. If you listen to like Moonchild and then Infinite Dreams and then this song, it just falls flat on its face, you know. Hopefully this is the one low point of the album and I don't have any other songs like that on here. Track number 4 is The Evil That Men Do. Coming off of the last track, it's already way better. I actually saw this song being performed in a live Iron Maiden video that I watched, and it is an awesome song live. The chorus is fantastic and so catchy and so epic. The instrumentals are just ripping shit up in this song. It's so anthemic. Any song that sounds that good live is going to be great on the studio album as well. The 5th song is Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Big oof not making this track 7, right? Just kidding. So this is the super long track of this album. Will it live up to Tame a Land? Probably not. Pretty good so far though. There's big guitar, big vocals, some synths in there, but really it's pretty cool, and it breaks into an absolutely killer guitar part about 4 minutes in. That whole section following it is incredible. There's just some quiet cymbals and just the bass and guitar, just so moody and beautiful, and the spoken lyrics come in and it just sets this mood. The synths actually complement the sound here, which is really nice. Instead of like sticking out, the music turns up again and an absolutely blistering guitar solo kicks off. It's truly impressive. You're just kind of sitting there with your mouth hanging open. This song definitely improves from those first couple of minutes that are a little bit more like chill, and then it just like kicks into this absolute jam. The 6th track on here is The Prophecy. Very cool vocal effects going on with the dual audio parts in each ear. Very galloping rhythms. There's a very push and pull quality to the songwriting. I really dig the almost medieval vibes to the guitar part to close the track. Pretty decent overall. The next track is The Clairvoyant. Pretty classic guitar playing here, and then it changes things up about halfway through and we get this super sweet guitar solo. The pace picks up and you get treated to some really excellent drumming and bass playing on here. There's this very steady, galloping beat that drives you all the way to the end of the track. This is probably a very good song for playing to like a stadium of people live. I bet it would be awesome. Probably got a lot of play at live shows. Track number 8, Only the Good Die Young. I love that interesting guitar picking that feels like almost acoustic before the halfway mark. I think I would have put this song more towards the middle of the album instead of leaving it as the ending track. I think a better ending track would be something like Infinite Dreams or Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. The best tracks off of this album to me were Moonchild, The Evil That Men Do, and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I gave this album a rating of 3.5 out of 5. I was a little bit let down by the last few tracks. They just didn't quite measure up to the rest of the album. They were all great songs, nothing super mind-blowing, except maybe Moonchild. I did not love Can I Play With Madness. And the synths are starting to creep in. I'm a little worried they're gonna have even more synths on the following albums, but we'll see what happens with that. In 1990, they released No Prayer for the Dying, and they finally have another lineup change in replacing Adrian Smith with Janik Gears. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. This opening track is called Tail Gunner, and it's pretty good. I don't hear the synths. This beat is super killer. I'm really digging the instruments and the rhythm. I'm into this chorus. I'm into the solos. It's inspiring a lot of confidence for the rest of the album. I was a little worried that it was gonna start changing their musical style after the last album, but this is so far a very straightforward heavy metal album. Track number 2, same thing, just some good old-fashioned heavy metal. Awesome chorus, no frills guitar playing, excellent drumming, headbang worthy, super energetic. Very, very straightforward tracks. Track number 3, you finally start to hear the synths in No Prayer for the Dying, the title track. It's not egregious at all though, I'm still into it. It's an excellent ballad. Like, I don't get to hear ballads enough from this band. I get that's not really their thing, but they do them really well. There's some beautiful guitar playing, some excellent bass backing everything up. That solo at the tempo change, Jesus. The return to the ballad tempo is refreshing and just finishes the track off perfectly. Track number 4 is Public Enema number 1. Once again, we return to the awkward song titles that I don't understand. This one packs a punch. I love this track. The instrumental is just insane and it showcases everybody's talents. The chorus is great and memorable. I don't understand the song title, but this track is awesome and has nothing to do with the song title really. Track number 4 is called Fate's Warning. Just like the band Fate's Warning, I'm guessing. I don't know. Moody guitar intros that just get me. Like, the kickoff into the charging tempo is fantastic. Another banger. So far this album's impressing me more than the previous one did. So much more straightforward heavy metal. I love this fast-paced Maiden mixing so fluidly with the slow, smooth sections. Track number 6 is The Assassin. Very sinister lyrics and instrumental parts. I'm loving Bruce's vocals on this song so much. The little riffs around the assassin bridge part after the chorus is really neat. And then there's this super kick-ass solo. Yes. Sorry, track number 7, Run Silent, Run Deep. Yet another great track. I'm running out of things to say about the tracks that I like for this band because there's been so many. There's only so many positive adjectives out there. I'm continually impressed with this band's quality, with the quality of Bruce's singing especially. He really stands out on this album vocally. Not that he doesn't on other albums, but it's just really noticeable. He's really good on this song, Run Silent, Run Deep. Track number 8 is called Hooks in You, and the guitar part in the chorus is very interesting. The riff continues and turns into this amazing solo. I can't tell which guitarist it is. I think Adrian handles a lot of the solos if I'm not mistaken. If that's Adrian, then he is a guitar god, and his talent is evident not just in this song, but in all of the solos. Track number 9, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Another weird song title. What is it with this album? I love Bruce's evil cackle here. It's a very run-of-the-mill heavy metal song, but I really like it. There's this sinister twist to it, especially if you watch the music video. It seems to be about like offering your daughter as a sacrifice to a cult or something. I don't know. Like, what the fuck? The solo is incredible on this song. Why does every Iron Maiden guitar solo just blow my mind? Am I that simple? Overall, a pretty great song. I could definitely see this song being one that they play a lot in live shows. Track number 10, Mother Russia. Very familiar. I think I might have heard this song before somewhere. Very cool transitions from these synthy choir vocal sections to the regular instrumentals and Bruce's vocals. There's some marching drums here that evoke very militaristic themes, war drums almost. Maiden play with these historical themes a lot in their songs, and they're doing that here, and they just do such an excellent job with these songs. Not a super epic closing song like some of their others, but still very good. The best songs on this album I thought were Tail Gunner, No Prayer for the Dying, Public Enema number 1, The Assassin, and Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. A lot of good songs on this album. I rated this album a 4 out of 5. It was an improvement from Seventh Son in my opinion, but not reaching the heights of the previous albums by any means. If I compare this album to like Peace of Mind, Power Slave, it doesn't come close. But I really enjoyed this album. There was no standout track, no epic track really. Nothing blew my mind. It was just a perfectly good heavy metal album. So that concludes my listen of the first 8 Iron Maiden albums. I will do another video where I listen to the next 8, probably in another 2 weeks. From what I understand, they kind of peaked towards the beginning of their career. Not that they don't have good albums in the second half of their career. I think that everybody's favorite albums are generally in the ones I've already listened to though. But I'm still looking forward to what is to come in Iron Maiden's career. I mean, this first half of their career was clearly incredible. They had some really awesome albums that I can't believe I've never listened to before. I think I can say that I'm definitely an Iron Maiden fan now. I've got my favorite tracks, I've got my favorite albums. I don't have any Iron Maiden shirts, so I'm wearing a Megadeth shirt today. I gotta get an Iron Maiden shirt now. I'm so disappointed that I didn't go watch them live when I had the chance. I should have freaking gone. I actually found the video. Somebody went to that concert that I missed and recorded the whole thing, and I watched the video, and it was so awesome. I would have loved that concert. I should have just gone. I hope you guys enjoyed my reactions to these albums. If you listened to these albums along with me, or you've already heard them, let me know your thoughts on these albums down in the comments. Which one's your favorite? Which are your favorite tracks? And do you think that they had a better first half of their career? I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.